Duh, you were just supposed to follow the rules and God would have blessed you, just like me. And am I getting sassy? Yes. Hi beautiful people. So I debated back and forth on whether or not to make this video, and if I did, how to actually approach it, because I know that Morgan already has a sour taste for me.
Yeah, I know that she claims to be walking with the Lord, but I would question that.
If I see toxic or harmful messages being imparted to young, impressionable Christians, it is difficult, if not impossible, for me to keep my mouth shut and not offer my biblical perspective. And this is really what my rebuttals are. My opposition as a Christian to what I've seen and continue to see in Christian education. When we receive a miseducation in sexuality, it can take years to break free, if we ever get to break free at all. My objective is not to condone all sex like it doesn't matter. The opposite, actually. The way we align or misalign our sexuality and spirituality can change the course of our lives. So without further ado, here it goes. Let's start with something positive. Someone in the God is Great community sent me this video titled 5 Important Things to Know Before Your Wedding Night. And I agree with all 5 points. Hallelujah. It's a miracle. They talk about having realistic expectations.
Lower your expectations or get rid of them and think to yourself, this could look a lot different than I thought it would.
They encourage their audience to welcome and embrace the deep emotional experience that may come with having sex for the first time.
Crying, being maybe overwhelmed in the moment.
Morgan talks about the potential discomfort for a woman.
You need to buy lubricant.
That's something I never heard in church. Morgan talks about female orgasm.
It just takes more work to figure out how to make us feel really good.
And best of all, they remind their audience that it's perfectly okay to not have intercourse on the first night.
It is actually totally okay if you don't end up having sex on your wedding night.
A lot of my friends, as Christians, actually found their first experience with sex traumatizing because they hadn't had any foreplay, they hadn't had any sexual contact beforehand, and they felt on the wedding night that they had to have penetrative sex. Thank you for being Christians who say that in lieu of something terrible like biblical gender roles or the transformed wife who use the Bible as a weapon for men to coerce women into submission. On the flip side, at the very end, Morgan threw in something I wholly disagree with.
What if you're not sexually compatible? You have the rest of your lives to figure it out, because you can become sexually compatible.
Which brings me to their most recent video. Christian dating gone wild. Godly dating versus culture's lies. Really, what gets to me is the tone of this video. It is so condescending and patronizing.
Paul's a big softie. He thinks that you all are babies and can't take it.
They, primarily Paul, remind us time and time again that this is an opinion-based video.
Comment below at any time and say, Paul and Morgan, I love you guys. You have some good wisdom, but I don't agree with you here, and we can keep the dialogue going.
Well, that's fine.
But it's hard to read their statements as opinions when they're expressed like this.
You must date for a long time before you can know that they're the one.
I love those words, sexually compatible.
Yeah, that just makes so much sense. You can't mess up. You just will have an experience and you'll grow from it.
Why were you dating in the first place?
I believe that Paul and Morgan followed the rules of purity culture and they're living that out. The unfair thing is, because those purity culture teachings worked for them, I believe they see that as proof that it always works. Something we're now calling the sexual prosperity doctrine. And really, this is the moment that got me fired up enough to do a video.
We're not trying to promote purity culture or whatever all these people are suddenly saying, oh, avoid purity culture.
I believe Morgan is 24 or 25 years old. And no, age is not everything. You can be wise beyond your years at 25 or dumb as a doornail at 45. But the key to true wisdom is acknowledging how little you know. Myself, I knew a lot more at 19 than I do now. Is that true? Of course not. But did I think I knew more then than I know that I know now? Yes. Does that make sense? When I was a youth leader, that attitude or belief about my personal understanding had me making definitive statements that actually hurt people. It made me hard-headed and difficult to talk to, because if your view didn't line up with mine, I couldn't be wrong. Mine is Bible-based. You're just an idiot. And I'm sorry, but I feel like Morgan is treating any of us who are harmed by purity culture like we're idiots. Duh, you were just supposed to follow the rules and God would have blessed you, just like me. And am I getting sassy? Yes. And that is because it's truly upsetting. Let me read you just a portion of an email I received yesterday. The subject line, "You made me realize my wasn't God punishing me." I'm going to read this email in hopes that Paul and Morgan discontinue condescending people who say they were harmed by purity culture and actually start listening to their stories. Here's what the harm of
Purity culture
looks like. Dear Brenda, I was raised my entire life in the evangelical community in western Kansas. It was drilled into me that if you had sex before marriage, you were a whore and worthless. It was so drilled into me that I was scared of sex, or even the thought of sexuality. By the end of college, I was in my first serious relationship, and he respected how slow I went. If we went too far and I had a panic attack, he would hold me. I thought I was broken, but I had no idea how badly this upbringing had damaged my sense of sexuality. Almost a year and a half later, I went on a date with a guy. We went back to my place and were kissing. Then he me. I got an STD. I thought it was God punishing me because I was too sexual. So I hid my shame for a long time. Shame of feeling like I was dirty and I had it coming. It wasn't until I started listening to you that I realized I wasn't alone in the fear and PTSD of purity culture. That this deep shame I felt wasn't my fault and I'm not broken. Thank you. Thank you for shining a light on this issue. It's helped me reconcile my inner warring thoughts. Paul and Morgan, if it's your desire, if it's God's calling that you become sex and relationship educators, that's amazing. Go for it. But the only way to be powerful and to not hurt people is to stop discrediting their experiences or outright denying they're even true. It also blows my mind that you make fun of other Christians saving themselves for marriage who took a different approach than you.
Even the Christian world, even believers claim it takes at least a year, it takes at least 3 years to get to know a person. What?
I'm not going to respond to this whole video, but my dad, my amazing dad, who I've had a million knockdown drag-out fights over theology with, who is now a huge advocate and supporter of God is Gray, someone I love to the bottom of my heart, bought me a copy of Intentional Dating. Paul Morgan's book already has a lot of 1-star reviews, an overall 2.5-star review, and comments like, "This was wildly disappointing. There could not be 2 people less qualified to write a book like this." And I'm going to review it. And I plan to be fair and balanced like I attempted to be in this video. The last thing I'll say is, Paul and Morgan, if you want to give sex and love advice, you have to expand your minds. Does that mean inviting people to do things that you find immoral? No. But it does mean sitting down and having conversation. It means listening to other people's journeys without judging them. It means reading books on the subject of sexuality so you can biologically and psychologically understand so much more. So you can be of the best help, the greatest resource to someone in need. And I'm sorry if you've been doing that and I am just ignorantly assuming otherwise, but I can say a posture of grace, humility, and education is not reflected in your latest video. And you know what? I know you will still wildly disagree with me and the way I see Christian sexuality. So start with my friend, Dr. Julie Slattery. She shares your opinions on LGBTQ issues. She believes masturbation is a sin. I strongly disagree with her on both these things, but she's a place where you could start learning how to listen to others. She takes in their experiences with grace, with zero judgment, and really helps people with their traumas, their losses, and their complicated relationships. And Dr. Julie Slattery, in her late 40s, is still devoted to education because wisdom says the more you know, the more you realize you know nothing at all. I hope this doesn't read as an attack. It's really a challenge for not only Paul and Morgan, but for all of us to do better, to be more careful with how we address something as profound and divine and important as sexuality. And that's it. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, donate to my Patreon or Venmo if you can. There's also a virtual baby shower going on for my future baby. I love you guys. God bless.